Senator Nichols, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I am doing swimmingly. It is Friday. This is going to be fantastic. I'm very excited for the weekend. I'm hoping that I make it through the session.
I think you will. If we make it, you're sure to make it. So yeah.
I've been waking up at 4 a.m. to do production.
That is early.
And then going until 5 p.m. and then I have to drive home.
Well, you've been doing a lot of interviews.
Yeah. It's been great though. Like
we appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You are welcome. I am very confident in saying there is not another civilian in the state of Idaho outside of professional politics that knows more about the happenings of Idaho than I do.
And you're right down here too. You're down in the belly of the beast.
In the belly of the beast. Quite literally. We're in the basement. I had Congressman Simpson in yesterday, and there's a closet store above us, and they were remodeling the closet. So we're in the middle of talking nuclear energy, and you're like, I was like, oh my God, we were all laughing. So
funny.
When you guys come in like senators and representatives, like you come in and we chat. When like Simpson or Risch they come with like a team of people.
They have their entourage that comes in with them. We're just peons in that whole political scheme of things.
Right, so. The lowly state senator. Like
I literally had to walk here all by myself.
You didn't teleport. You need to get like an entourage. You should get like a couple interns that just follow you around.
I've had people actually offer to be bodyguards for me if I really wanted that.
That's kind of creepy.
It is and it isn't. I mean, from the sense of, people are trying to look out for you and they want to make sure you're, protected. And
it sucks that you have to have like even field that conversation though.
Right.
I had Representative Raybould in a couple weeks ago, and she has made a lot of bold statements about like we need to stop the culture of threats against our elected officials. And here we have, the President Trump as candidate the second time or third time rather as a candidate. Here he's like assassination attempts.
Like literally they're trying to assassinate him.
They're literally trying to kill. Like he got shot in the head. His ear's attached to his head and the bullet hit the ear.
Crazy.
And it's like, we need to stop this. Like, this is madness. We're not going to have people that are, anyway.
It's
I'm sorry that you have, I am sorry that you have to.
It's not too bad. Going into it, well, most people know going into politics that you have to have really thick skin and you have to be able to handle, situations and things that people say. And it can get kind of ugly at times because not only do people not agree with you all the time, but they're very passionate and emotional when it comes to it sometimes too. Yeah. And, but you just have to be able to go with it and be able to handle whatever comes at you. Yeah. I've had death threats. I've had things like that before. And, while you try to be cautious and make sure that you're protected, that your family's protected, you just know that that's part of the territory going into it.
I'll have to ask you off air kind of what you do because, I obviously am not in politics and I don't even take positions on things. But as you can imagine, in recent times, I've had a lot of people communicating with me from the general public that are like mad because of something one of my guests said. Like, I didn't this is their email. Like you can get a hold of them. Right. Like I've tried and you're platforming them. It's like, whoa, dude, like don't shoot the messenger. Like I just, and I'm trying to,
you're just here having a conversation. Yeah.
And this is what I tell people. It's like, listen, I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. You get to decide if you agree with, let's say, Representative Raybould. If you agree with Representative Raybould, great. If you don't, great. My whole position is just to understand what she's saying and present that to the world.
Sure.
I'm not here to tell her she's right or wrong.
You're not picking sides. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No. But some people don't remember that and they don't realize that. And if it's something that they're not for, then it doesn't matter what the platform is or who has them on. They're not going to be happy. And, it's one of those things. I have this little saying that if you want to be in leadership and please everybody, don't go into politics. Don't be a leader because you might as well just sell ice cream. And then even that, you may not get everybody to be happy and agree with you all the time.
Oh, the vegans hate ice cream slingers.
See? So you just can't win.
Yeah. Unless you're doing even the coconut milk people. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's out there. But bottom line is that I actually am very complimented by that because it tells me that a lot of people, check this out, the comms office of Mountain Home got a hold of me because apparently the mayor of Mountain Home had used one of my clips on education in like a state of the city address. And they were like calling to connect. I was like, Mountain Home. That's wild. Like, I've never even been there. Like, thanks, guys.
You just never know what is going to get out.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's
Or
a good
what
time.
information is going to be out. So,
So look, last time we talked,
Yeah.
we had hit chickens, and you were doing a chicken bill that said, hey, if you have 1/5 of an acre, then you can't have roosters, or your HO can monitor roosters, but your HOA should not be able to restrict you from having, I think, 4 chickens with 0.20 acres.
Yeah.
They can't restrict you with like a flag. They can't restrict you with political signs. They can't restrict you with solar.
Yeah.
They can definitely talk to you about where the solar is located.
Sure.
But we have precedents for having consumer strength and power in a situation where you can't negotiate.
Right.
Now, this is not the same as just having a lease with somebody where you're renting a house to them, because you can negotiate terms. You can't negotiate with an HOA.
No.
So we had that chat about chickens.
Yep.
Since then, we have had an increasing development with like the avian flu, and chickens are getting slaughtered
Yep.
across the country. We are seeing not catastrophic, but astronomical
Lot of numbers.
increases of egg prices.
Yep.
Great for our local egg providers like McIntyre Farms. We
Sure.
get eggs from them. That's
Yeah.
great, and their eggs are the same cost as like Winco eggs.
Right.
And when the cost of eggs come back down, still go with McIntyre because they're great. But talk to me about what you think we are doing right and what you think we're doing wrong with chickens and dealing with this illness.
Yeah, well, I want to even go back just a little bit further than that. So last session, I started a brand new section of code that had to do with urban agriculture, because I've really seen this disconnect continuing to surface with people and agriculture. Being self-sufficient, being able to grow food, to be able to produce their own food, do gardens, things like that. And if you go back to, the wartime, we had victory gardens.
Sure.
We had America was giving seeds out and telling people to plant gardens and have chickens. That was considered very patriotic, part of helping with the war efforts, right? So we have this history of self-sufficiency and trying to make sure that people are dependent on themselves. And so now coming into, this modern age, I really see the need to incorporate that back in. You talk to kids, and a lot of young kids, they think their food comes from the grocery store. They don't know where it started from. They don't know where it came from beyond that. And there's so many health benefits. People are really concerned about what's just even in their food and what's happening with their foods. There's been a lot of talk about seed oil, and food dyes and different things like that. And now we have RFK that's in there, and he's talked a lot about, the health of America and making America healthy again. So there's just a lot of interest in what's happening. And I really think it goes back down to the basics of knowing where your food comes from, being able to grow your own food. And so I really felt, and having a lot of people contact me over the last few years about being able to have chickens, this is a great time. Now, I knew egg prices were going up, and I knew there'd been some stuff about bird flu, but I didn't know how vast it actually was and how much egg prices were going to continue to go up. I just felt that this year was a good time to be able to bring a bill to allow people to have chickens.
I really enjoyed I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
you're
really
good.
enjoyed your point as well in our first conversation about like, they're a great pet.
They are.
They're a great pet. Like, don't get the rooster. Okay.
Yeah,
Forget that guy.
Yeah.
But we have dogs that bark. Like, we have dogs that poop on our lawn. Like, we have
Right.
dogs that do all kinds of things.
Yes.
And, it's like, chickens, they'll make a certain amount of noise, and maybe there's a certain amount of waste produced by them, but like, how are they a distinctly different pet to have? And by the way, they produce something valuable other than like cuddles on the couch. Like a dog. I have 2 dogs. They don't produce anything for me.
No. And you can. I mean, when my kids were little, they would go pick up the chickens and carry them around like a kitten or something. And, chickens are very easy to tame, actually. And they will let you treat them like a pet. So, but they're really good. They're really good to have around. They do a lot of things as far as I clean out my fridge once a week usually, and I just take all my stuff out to the chickens.
Right, yeah.
They eat it. So there's little waste with that. And if you have a garden, you can use what comes out the other end in your garden. There's just a lot of benefits, and there's a lot of health benefits too. They find that, being with chickens, gardening, all that sort of stuff is really good for your mental health to kind of give you that break that you need from the real world.
Yeah.
And you get the eggs. And eggs are now back in style for being healthy for you again.
Yeah, they got hammered for like 30 years.
They did. Yeah. And now they're saying, no, eggs actually are good for you. So
Man, when I graduated from college, I remember the egg whites were the thing, right? So
Oh,
you had
yes.
like the original Rocky where he was just drinking raw eggs, and somewhere in between Rocky and him beating, Apollo Creed, and like me graduating college where it's like I can't even eat the yolks and like I gotta cook, and now it's like my buddy does like raw eggs every day, like Rocky style.
When I was growing up, my grandmother would make orange Julius's and she would always throw an egg in there.
That too.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yep.
I did that as a kid, and I remember thinking like, is this safe? Whatever.
Yeah. Just go ahead. And the cool thing too, a lot of people don't know, is that you can actually preserve eggs. So there's a thing called water glassing, and they used it back in the Depression era, and even before then, you actually use lime. And you can actually take the eggs straight from the chicken, put them in a jar, add this lime solution in there, and you can actually preserve those eggs for 12 to 18 months easily.
And are they, so say you do it all correctly, you take them out, are they actually like you cracking their liquid on the inside, or is it hard boiled?
Nope, they are liquid. It's like you just got them out of the chicken coop. So, and they will be amazing. They're amazing to be able to do that.
Do you remember that scene from Napoleon Dynamite when he's working at the chicken farm and they crack an egg and then he's like, eat up.
I do remember.
The chickens have talons. Yeah. Okay. So,
so no, it's important. And I really wanted
where is that bill at this point?
So it's over on the House side.
Okay, great.
We're looking at making one little provision to it, just a really minor tweak in it, that I think people will be really happy with. And then, it should be good to go. I've had several conversations with the chairman over there on ag, and he really likes it. He has a lot of people, he said, commenting on it. And I think it'll be really good for the people. And again, there's still a lot of oversight of the HOA. Roosters are optional. Sure. How you're going to house them. There's different things that they
have
have
to be in line with the construction.
Right.
Like
yeah. But overall, it shouldn't be a big deal.
That's awesome.
Really shouldn't be.
So speaking of chairman, you are the chairwoman of the House Ag Committee, and looking at the issue we're in with the avian flu and the increased price of eggs, there are a lot of people, and I think just nationally, people have this exhaustion with the idea that there's like, a large scale disease that's sweeping through and causing things.
Yeah.
Some people really feel that, and you're always going to have people that feel that there are certain degrees of, this is an unnecessary response to things. We're artificially driving up prices, things like that. Mm-hmm. What do you think we're doing right with, or wrong, both? How do you think we're doing with the response to the avian flu nationally and both in the state? Or just in the state? I don't care about nationally.
My understanding is that the avian flu really it mainly impacts like large places that have like lots of chickens in it. Mm-hmm. I think it's really sad that, they might have a few dozen or what have you. I was reading this article the other day that there was this large operation of chickens in another state, and they had, I don't know, like 6 or 8 chickens that tested positive for it. And but they killed all of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did it spread to everybody? Was there a way to be able to just isolate those? Because I've raised animals before, and when I had an animal that would get sick, I would just take it in, separate it from the rest of them, and get it better again, and then put it back out with the rest of them. The rest of them were fine. So I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that they must think it's more cost effective that way. It must help with the spread of whatever is going on with that flock at that time. I think it's sad that that's how it's happening, and that's another good reason for the chicken bill, because you usually don't have viruses like that spread amongst just a few chickens. It's usually big flocks that end up getting it somehow. But I think the response, I mean, what do you do? If that's the easiest way to go about curing that, and then you just get a fresh flock back in later on, and you might have a period of time where prices go up, egg prices go up. You have to raise those chickens, because usually you're getting them as chicks, so you have to raise them to get them to that point where they can start laying eggs, or and there's a difference between like egg layers and actual meat chickens. Yeah. So they're different types, but I guess that's the way it is, and that's why I like self-sufficiency, because if I can rely on myself and I don't have to worry about egg prices. I mean, I haven't bought eggs in the grocery store for years. years.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No, for years
my
I have not
God.
bought eggs.
I love that. I love that for you. I would love that for me. I love that for you
Yeah,
though.
it's
That's
great
great.
to just be able to go out there and get my eggs and use them. And people go through a lot of eggs, really,
Yeah.
especially if you have kids and families and everything. But
But the bottom line is, it sounds like there's nothing that Idaho's doing that you're like, hey, we could be doing this better, or we shouldn't be doing this.
And I haven't heard a lot of the bird flu being in Idaho. I haven't seen a lot of information about like we have this mass spread going through Idaho or anything. So that's good. Hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully we can keep it that way. And I've toured a lot of different facilities, agricultural facilities, and they do a really good job of trying to maintain things, making sure things are clean, making sure animals are healthy. So I think we're doing a good job here. I know it's something that they're watching, but hopefully we don't end up with those issues here. And I haven't seen really any signs here that that's taking place. So.
Yeah, no kidding. It's my understanding that you can vaccinate chickens for avian flu, or something of that nature. And before I knew anything about you, somebody actually sent me an article that they were like, hey, this gal in the legislature is concerned about vaccines in the state of Idaho. You had a bill in like 22 or something that was dealing with mRNA vaccines in livestock, right?
For people and livestock. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was for
what
for
was
both.
that?
Yeah.
That didn't pass, right?
No,
Okay.
no. It was during just shortly after COVID. And, it was one of those bills to first just let's have this conversation. Let's talk about this. So it was to just ban mRNA from people, from injecting into people and for animals. Because there's a lot of concern. Like I said, it kind of goes back to what we're putting in our bodies, what we're putting in our food, what's happening. I mean, we send out a lot of food just as a United States as a whole that gets processed out of the country and then it's brought back in. So people are just very concerned about what's happening with their food in general. And the mRNA has been a newer thing. And so at that time, I thought, you know what, let's force that discussion. Let's force that topic and just come out with something saying we're just banning it. So yeah, it didn't go anywhere further than that, but it created a lot of discussion. And since then we have seen a lot of information that's come out about mRNA, good or bad. But it did create a lot of discussion. I think that bill ended up getting recognized internationally.
Right.
And I did a lot of different like podcasts and interviews and stuff on it, on why I was concerned with it.
Yeah, let's just have the conversation.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
we don't even have to agree.
Yep.
Let's just give me the dignity of a conversation about something that's
Right.
going to affect my life. Like if you're inserting risk into my life, I have a right to know that. Or if you're inserting anything into my right, like can you just explain it to me? Like
let's have that discussion.
Yeah, right.
Let's be transparent and honest with each other about what we're talking about. And I really try to remove like my feelings on things. I like to stick with facts and just do everything based primarily on facts. I mean, of course, I have opinions and there are some emotional arguments to be made on things, but it's hard to try to legislate on feelings. You really have to legislate on the facts. So I try to keep everything as factually based as I possibly can. And sometimes it sounds a little bizarre. I mean, I've ran bills. One of my first bills had to do with personhood status. And that was that we were not going to give personhood to Mother Nature, inanimate objects, or artificial intelligence, or things like that. And people were thinking, what in the world is she doing? Why is she running something like this? And it was so interesting because it made it through the House. I was in the House at that time, made it through the House. And when I got over to the Senate, I made just these packets of articles. Like it just had the front page of the articles on how this was happening. Like around the world, we were giving personhood status. So the status that you and I have.
Like dolphins were non-human humans or something. Like there is an actual designation where it's like you have personhood.
Yeah.
And we also are entering into this very difficult, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, but you're right. But it's artificial intelligence. And there was a place in Texas that a brothel was actually trying to get licensing to be able to open up this brothel in Texas. And they were going to have worker robots, and they wanted
Oh my God.
and they wanted
God
to give.
bless you, Texas. You are so wild. God bless it.
It might, it was kind of crazy, and they
Well,
wanted to
yeah,
give workers' rights to
A
the
lot less
robots.
workers' comp. That's great.
But they did. They wanted to give workers' rights to the
Wait,
robots.
is this real?
It was real. The only
This
reason
is real.
the only reason it got turned down was because it had something to do with the area that they were trying to open up with. So they didn't really have a concern with the brothel itself, or that they were wanting to use robots, or that they were wanting to give workers' rights to those robots. It just had to do with the designation of where they were trying to open it up at.
I
But
gotta find out if it came to pass somewhere
you will
else.
have
Like,
to look.
This
Yes.
is wild. This is particularly interesting. I had Representative Jeff Ehlers, just a couple days ago. I think his episode dropped this morning, and he's on the AI committee for Idaho, and they're trying to figure out. They have all of these questions, like who's responsible for the programmed morality of a driverless car, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was explaining to somebody today, look, I'm in the back seat of a driverless car, or I'm in the front seat. I'm wherever.
Sure.
Okay. It doesn't matter. I'm in the car. And in front of me is a semi that all of a sudden slams on its brakes, or it turns over or something. And that car then has to make a split-second decision of, do I run into the back of this semi and probably kill me and the occupant? Do I swerve left into oncoming traffic? And let's say there's a car there, and I know conclusively I will have an impact with the car. Okay, so do I start involving another car and a driver in this incident? Or do I swerve to the right, where I know there's a person, and I will hit that person and likely kill that person?
Right.
So the car itself, the AI system, has to make this split-second morality decision of like, do I sacrifice my occupant or someone else?
Right.
Right. Who is responsible for the fallout of that? Right. If it sacrifices itself, then the passenger's like, wait a minute, we had a driverless car that literally ran right into the back of a semi.
Yeah.
Like, it should have swerved out of the way. It's like, well, if it swerves out of the way and somebody else gets hit and killed, it's like, wait a minute.
What do you do?
Who's responsible?
Yeah, where's the liability lie?
And again, do you establish personhood or even the capacity to have liability to the program? Is it the responsibility of the person who programmed the AI? Is it the owner of the vehicle?
Right.
Like all of these problems. So establishing personhood, especially in the age of autonomous action by non-human entities, right? Like,
We're here.
We're there.
We're here. Yeah. And 5 years ago, nobody could see that at that point in time. And Idaho was the first state to pass really any type of AI legislation. And my desire with that, it was actually myself and a few of my constituents that came up with the idea because of what we were seeing. We wanted to make sure that our rights, your rights, that they weren't degraded to an animal or a rock or a body of water or anything along those lines. And when it went to the Senate floor and it was argued on the Senate floor, I was watching the debate. There was 2 senators that were both attorneys, one Democrat, one Republican, and they both got up and debated for the bill because in their continuing education as attorneys, they were being trained on how to handle these sorts of situations and how to work with that within law. And so they knew that it was happening. They knew it was being done and that it was going to become more of a thing. And so they both debated in favor of that bill, and it did pass and it did get signed into law.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
This is what we're living in the future. We're living in the future.
Well, and that's my thing is like, I would prefer to be proactive than reactive on things. So as I see things happening, and I watch all sorts of different things, both locally, nationally, and globally on what's transpiring in those different realms. And that's sometimes how I determine what legislation I want to run, because I can see things happening and I know it's just a matter of time before they get to us. So I would rather be proactive on things than reactive. It's always just an easier way to do it.
Speaking of, and again, I know we chatted about this last time, but your proactive engagement with preserving cloud seeding and working against ban, how has that gone, by the way? Because you ran 2 bills, one to ban weather modification in the state, and then one to preserve cloud seeding through enhanced transparency, being proactive with that, which again, like, you deserve a trophy or something for that. Like, I don't know, I'll get you, like, I'm going to get you one of those karate trophies. It's like 3 with like a big plane on the top.
Right.
But like, How has that gone? How has that been received?
Well, both of those bills are currently over in resources. I do have a hearing on one of them next week. And it's more than just like the preservation part of it. Like water is a huge issue here in Idaho, and we are a desert state. In states where they've been able to ban cloud seeding and things like that, they never had it really to begin with. So it was a really easy lift for them to be able to just come in and say, we don't have it anyway, let's just ban it.
Right.
Idaho's not that way. We are a dry state. We're a desert state. Water is really critical to what we're doing here. And it's not so much that I want to preservation, but I want us to be, again, honest about what's going on. And I want transparency. And I think when we start working within that realm, it makes it easier to be able to really see what's going on and what we need to do. Are things happening that I don't know about that are harming us in certain ways, stuff that's going into our air, what have you? It could be. I don't know, because I don't know all the dynamics that we're working with. So where I like to start with is, let's just be transparent and honest to begin with. And then we can work within that realm and see what we need to do. It's like we had a presentation on hemp. We passed a hemp law several years ago. And I've always just been curious, like, since we've done that, what's happened since then?
Right.
Where are we at? Is there things that we need to fix? Is it working? Is it not working? Do we need to tighten up some stuff or make some changes? And it was just really good to be able to get the feedback, since it's been, I think, 4 years, from those within that industry and say, yeah, this is what's working that's good. This is what's not working. This is what we'd like to see different. Here's how we can make changes.
Right.
And then let's do it. Yeah, let's go back into that. But so my thing is, I like to work within the system that we have created. Here's the system that we have. So let's work within it and see what we can do. So mine's not even necessarily like I'm pro or against or what have you. I'm like, let's just work with what we've got and see what we need to do to make it work for everybody. Right. How can we do that? But yeah, I have the one on the cloud seeding, the other one's on the solar radiation. And that one's really interesting because it's almost kind of like the personhood idea, that I was just talking about, where it's kind of out there a little bit. We're learning more about it, but if you really start digging into it, there's all sorts of information that it's going on, that it is happening. I mean, I have reports from NOAA, I have reports from the White House, I have all sorts of things.
Back up. What's going on from the White House? Like, is the White House actively engaging in attempting to dim our sun?
So before the current administration, under the Biden administration, there are documents that the White House did put out. Now, you can't find it online now because it's been scrubbed now, but I have the reports. I saved it all, showing that we were putting money and we were putting interest and time and commitment into solar radiation modification. So they were actively engaged in that area.
Wait, so they were trying to research it, or they were actually dimming the sun?
They were researching it and looking at ways to be able to dim the sun.
Gotcha. So they didn't actually dim the sun.
I don't know if there have been other
from
groups.
The information that you
from the
have
information
from the
I have. No, it was more of a report of, this is what we should be looking at. This is how we can curb global warming. We can dim the sun. We can do these different things. They have what's called cloud whitening, and that's another reflective thing that they've been doing. And
when you say they, who's they?
Different scientists, different government entities, different countries that have been
in the U.S. There are government entities,
not necessarily in the U.S., but in other countries that have been already working within this, where they put stuff into the clouds to make them reflective.
Sure.
And so,
you got that link I sent you, right, with the guy with the weather balloons?
Yes.
That put the sandwich bags into the sky. I told you, I was like, he's literally a dude like in his backyard letting go of sandwich. I told you the weather balloon. You saw the picture. I was like, this is lit. Like, and holy
you know what
cow.
I found out? That there's other companies that are doing that on a bigger scale, that they're actually doing similar things, and they're putting larger amounts into the sky to try to do that.
That's that one.
So
that one, I was like,
I
finally found that, I was like, okay, like, game, set, match. There's a dude in like wherever he was.
Right.
He and his two buddies living in the basement who literally are letting go of weather balloons in the backyard with like a sandwich bag full of, what was it? It was like sulfate or sulfur. It was something. But he was like, yeah, we will reflect things.
We're going to reflect.
Yeah, like, you cannot say that there aren't people attempting to do this.
Absolutely.
Like there's absolutely that guy wherever with the weather balloon letting him go, and
Yep.
you can donate. This was
Yes,
the
I
crazy
thought
thing.
that
You could donate. Yeah, you can
efforts.
donate to the cause, and it's like it's like you donate $100. You're like, let go, like send up $100 worth of. It's like you
Of
got
these
it,
balloons.
right?
Yep,
And
he'll
it's-
do it.
and he'll
Yeah.
do it. He's like,
Yep.
you can do it for people's birthdays. Like send them a note that like we let go of this weather balloon with like Martha's name on it or something. Happy birthday, Martha. And like I was like, this is the wildest time
It
to be
is.
alive.
It is.
What's NOAA? You mentioned NOAA.
So NOAA is like this national organization of like they do a lot of research in regards to weather and what's happening with the weather
And are they doing
climate and everything.
cloud whitening things or blocking?
So
the sun
they
things?
have just a lot of reports out. Like you can go on their site and you can actually look at all the reports that they talk about solar radiation modification and how that's going to be utilized and what they're doing and where we're at now and different countries, different entities and what they're doing on it. There's actually been countries that have already banned solar radiation modification. So they're almost, I don't know if they're necessarily like a governmental entity, but they're up to that status basically.
And
so,
are they operators? Like, are they actually doing these things, or they're just aggregating information?
They're just giving,
Okay.
getting the information, saying kind of where they stand on these
Gotcha.
issues. Yeah.
And the reason I ask is I just want to make sure, like, there is no evidence that you could find right now that the United States government is dimming the sun.
So there's no evidence that I can find that the government, besides what I just said about the White House putting, I think it was like 11, I don't know, I want to say like 11 billion comes to mind, but
They're
a
putting
bunch
money
of
into
money.
climate research
Right.
and solar
But there have
radiation
been
research.
grants that have been given out to like Harvard universities and different organizations, different schools and stuff on how to be able to go about this. And I know it sounds maybe a little tinfoil hat, but it's not. Bill Gates is a huge person that has been putting money and doing different things like that in there
for decades.
And Forbes,
by the way,
Forbes magazine wrote a whole article about it, about Bill Gates and solar radiation modification.
Listen, this is not tin hat at all, because back in I think it was like 2006, I had a buddy who was doing a PhD in Georgia at Georgia Tech for man, he was running refrigeration cycles with natural gas, which makes my head hurt. I'm like, wait, you make a combustion? He's like, yeah. He's German. He's like, you make a I can't do his accent. He's like, but you essentially burn gas and then get a refrigeration cycle out of it. I was like, that's wild. So he was, very interesting. And he was big, obviously, into keeping up with scientific data. And he was telling me, and this is like 20 years ago, he was telling me about listening to a presentation from Gates talking about, figuring out what would have to be done in the event that, we had to reduce radiation hitting the earth, all these things. And so again, to be clear, that's not tinfoil at all. Bill Gates' name gets thrown around a lot by a lot of people, but I can confirm decades ago that these were conversations and presentations and big summits that were being had about what to do. My concern is, hey, I'm not upset that people research it. Yeah. Right. What I want to know is anybody in the United States government pulling the trigger, just like in Idaho. Mm-hmm. Obviously people reach out to me. They're like, this is happening. I'm like, okay, where? Who? Like, because I don't want heavy metals dropping on me. You don't want heavy metals dropping on you. Like, we do not want these things.
But we have to function within the facts, right?
Yes.
So we need facts. We can go by feelings sometimes, but feelings aren't the way that you want to make laws and do different things. Right. You're going to go by facts. And you have to have information to substantiate that. Yeah.
That's it. Listen, if you know a person or an entity, just give me one and I'll make them famous in Idaho.
What I can tell you is that there is a lot of interest in it. There are other countries that are doing things along those lines, and there are testing functions that are going on to see how to go about doing that and how we can do it. I even saw one where there's a group of scientists that are looking at how we can put something into outer space that would help block the sun, like a huge shield type thing.
Like a windshield block.
Yeah, it looks like a bunch of like solar panel type things, right? And you just put it in outer space in different locations to help block the sun. But my thing is that these sound like science fiction type stuff, but most science fiction, there's elements of truth to that. And eventually you're going to get down that road a little bit further, and it might not be science fiction for very long. It might be part of reality.
Listen, we're already living in the future. We know we're living in the future.
Every day we're living in the future, right? Yeah. So and with Idaho, again, being a huge agricultural state, I mean, I've heard and I've seen and I've talked to people on just the effects of what fires do to our ag industry with the smoke and what that does with growth and everything. And I'm thinking, we don't want to get rid of the sun. We need the sun. We need
the
it
sun,
to
100%.
do it.
We need
do
the
its
sun.
job.
We need water.
We don't want to mess with it.
These are different things. Like cloud seeding is not trying to dim the sun. Like we're trying to coax more water out. Like there's a water-based thing. So if you're upset in the summer that like you have a hazy day, that's not cloud seeding, man.
But let's be proactive on some of these.
Yes.
And so that's my purpose
that.
in doing that one. So
you have and again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to move too fast. I was telling you, like
good.
our first interview
We're
like a
flowing.
year ago,
moving.
we could like ramble on. It's like, I know it's a work day you got, but I want to hit a couple more things. Specifically, we have adoption education and cursive handwriting, essentially testing and certification. Proficiency.
Yep.
Right. Now, the Constitution is written in cursive, so it's important that we have our kids able to actually read the Constitution. That's great. My son's penmanship is actually getting better now that he's learning cursive, which is great. Did you see the guy on 8th Street like last week who had a camera and a whiteboard? And he was like,
I did see that.
He was like, would you like to write in cursive? And I was like, get the hell out. I'm trying to get a coffee, bro. And I was like, no, because you know what you're going to do?
He was the guy on the street asking the question. Yeah.
Dude, I don't trust any man on the street interviews. It's terrible. And he had a big old camera, like one of the old school ones. I was like, buddy.
And a whiteboard.
And he was by himself. Like, that's when you know it's like, this is a sad puppy.
He was trying. That was kind of, that interview kind of cracked me up a little bit because I think he said it was an emergency. Like I'd put it in as an emergency. And just so everybody knows.
Wait, was this guy directed towards you?
Well, he was talking about my bill. And every piece of legislation that we have, ever since COVID, we add this little blurb at the end about an emergency, that this goes into effect either upon signage or July 1st or whatever. Right. But it says that it's an emergency. And every piece of legislation has that now. So it's not that I'm saying cursive writing is an emergency. We need to be doing this right now. Every bill has that on there.
Right.
But I have seen so many things transpire since I was in school, and kids not being able to read and write cursive anymore.
Right.
They don't even have really a signature, a lot of them anymore. And to me, a signature, and I'm also a notary, so I've done a lot of stuff with signatures, right? You have to verify people who they are, and you check their signature. And there's a lot of younger adults and kids that don't even have a signature anymore. And your signature is a lot like your thumbprint. It's individual to you. It's unique.
Yes.
You use it on important documents, important things. And so that was my first indication of, why are kids not able to sign their name anymore? Right. And so that just kind of led me into this other realm of the importance of cursive and why we should be making sure it's in our standards, it's in our education standards, but we're not making sure that kids are proficient in it, and we don't have everybody doing the same thing with it. And so I just felt it was really important to put some proficiency measures so that we can make sure that kids are learning cursive, that they can read and write it. Because our founding documents, family history documents, there's all sorts of things. And then the science behind being able to write cursive, what it does to the brain, what it does for fine motor skills, what it does for memorization. There's just a lot of things. And I had one senator that did not agree with me on the committee when I presented that bill that said, well, we used to teach Latin, but we don't do that anymore. Like we can just, if you want to learn Latin, you can just do it, or we offer it as another class because we have all this high tech devices now that can translate stuff for us and do all these different things. So why would we want to make sure I don't really think that we need that. And my thought was, we have the same thing with math. We have all these electronic devices that can do math for us. They can plot out all sorts of things now. But does that mean that we stop teaching math? Well, no, because we still want kids to be critical thinkers, to be able to think independently, to be able to, what if it all went away someday? Then what are you going to do? And that's the same thing with cursive writing. It's more than just about the reading and writing. It's all the different types of skills that you actually get from being able to do it.
And your bill, and perhaps I was wrong, but like your bill did not create the requirement.
No, those are already there.
Like, so whether this, and I don't know who you're talking about, but it's like, okay, but I'm not asking you to make this a requirement. It's already a requirement. I'm just asking that we have some kind of confirmation and mechanism to make sure that students are learning this.
If we're teaching it, then we better make sure the kids are learning it because that is the requirement. So let's make sure that they are doing it. Adoption. Yes.
Yeah, but let's do this. You're going to have to come back.
Okay. I'm always happy to come back.
What I really want to ask also is, look, I have a bill that, you're now familiar with that's adding.
Came and presented in my committee.
Indeed, I did. And you had great questions, which is like, are you collecting anyone's data? And the answer is conclusively no. Like this is, purely a parent's rights bill. Like parents have a right to know if you insert risk into their families' lives. And that's what we are doing with technology in our education systems. You have a right. I have a right to know if like, hey, if you're handing my kid something that we know to be dangerous conclusively or not 100% safe, which also known as dangerous, if it's not 100% safe, I have a right to know that. But what I'm wondering is, even as I was thinking about this and thinking about your bills and then the one that I'm bringing forward, it's like, we're just adding more to the public school. And it's like, is this a problem? Like, is it, I really had to step back. It's like, I mean, we're kind of saying that our education system is so burdened by regulations that maybe it's not performing like the state and legislators. And, that's kind of what school choice is, which is like the schools are not, some people feel the schools are not functioning as well as they can. And I've spoken with a lot of administrators and they're like, look at the like 5,000 requirements we have. Like, it's really hard to accomplish. Yes. And like, where do we ever get to a point where we're like, all right, I like this idea, but we are just weighing down our public school system. And like, are we responsible for, if somebody says the public school system is failing, it's like, but are you responsible for asking the public school system to do too much?
Yeah. No, I think there is. I think there does need to be a lot of deregulation in regards to education. Now, I'm a fan of getting rid of the Department of Education on the federal level.
But like within our state, like you and I collectively have 3 bills that we're bringing to education.
Right. And we have so much regulation that comes from the federal level. So if we could get rid of that, it would get rid of a lot of regulation that's already required because it would bring it back down to the state level. And then the state could come in and make the determinations on what's going to be best, not having to worry about the federal requirements that come to that. So that in itself would deregulate a lot of things because there's a lot of requirements that the feds, either through money that we take through them or just requirements in general, that are burdensome on our education system. But I think there does need to be a lot of deregulation. Now, is some regulation good? Absolutely. We do need some regulation. There needs to be, of course, some standards of some sort that we're going by, what we're doing. But for a long, long time, just the different districts, the different areas within our state were able to do things that they needed to do that worked for their area, for their district. And I think the more that you have parental involvement, the more that you have your community's involvement, I think that makes for a better educational system. But we do. And there's always been this new greatest thing that's coming down the pipeline, like whether it was Gold's 2000 or Common Core or whatever it is, it was the next greatest thing, right? But every time we did that, was just adding more to the plate, so to speak. More reporting, more requirements, more thing, and it hasn't made things better. I mean, the Federal Department of Education has been in existence for, I think it's been like 60 some odd years, something like that. What has it done? Has it made anything better? In my mind, it really hasn't served a good purpose for the amount of money that it takes to run it and fund it and the burdens that it places on the states. I'm like, we could totally do without that. And I think make a better system. I think if we really brought things back to the state level, I think it would be a better system as a whole. So yeah, I do think that there needs to be some deregulation, quite a bit of deregulation actually done on the education system that we have. And I think some of the things that we have seen that people don't like are because of the requirements that are placed on the schools. So let's deregulate.
Senator Nichols, God bless you, woman. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank
Always
you.
Enjoy the conversation.
Always a pleasure.
We never hit everything we need to hit.
We'll do it again.
We're going to do it again.
That's
Thank you
right.
for coming in. Have
You're
a great
welcome.
day.
Thank you.